All right, guys, welcome back to another Conscious Conversation. This is episode number 15, and as always, I've swapped out Alex and Sarah this time, and Craig's returned. How you doing, Craig?
I'm well, man. I'm well.
Yeah, I'm really good as well. Interesting that you're wearing glasses and your hairstyle's changed. What's going on?
It's a whole new me. Nah, contact lenses, man, because of the delivery service.
Right.
So I think I need to go pick them up. Well, it's nice to wear the glasses, let my eyes breathe, but I'm not really always in my contacts. Just prefer the freedom of movement, quite an active.
All right.
That just makes it easy. And the hair, there's no barbers knocking around, mate. I'm coming for your title. It's down to my back.
Mate, look at that. My hair is getting long as hell. Huh?
How long you been growing it?
Well, I first started consciously growing it in 2016, and yeah, I just think it's just been a process of trimming it and then allowing it to grow. But yeah, I just think, funnily enough, we'll start off that being the first topic. There's a philosophy behind growing your hair. So when I first started growing my hair out back in, I think I tried it out in 2010, 2011. I was young, I was 18 or 19 then, and I was swayed by other people's opinions. So my parents were like, what the hell are you doing? All my friends were like, you look like an idiot. So by the time it got to that weird phase where it just doesn't do anything, I chopped it off before that. And then I did it again in 2012. 11, 12, I tried to grow it out again. Then I got frustrated by it, so I got it chopped off. So that was my own fault. And then this time round, when I did it in 2016, I just felt like I was going through that transition phase as a person, just becoming a completely different person. And I think the growth of the hair was a symbolism of that transformation and transition. So yeah, it's quite weird how then I just didn't give a shit what people thought, and that's who I was. I didn't really care about what people's opinions were. So I think that really became me, and yeah, it's quite interesting how that works, isn't it?
It is, man. Just one thing, when you said you consciously chose to grow your hair, it just gave me an image of you there, like grow, consciously making it grow. But yeah, your hair is very symbolic in several levels. But you'll always notice if somebody's had a haircut, like a drastic one, or they've changed the color of the hair. There's some change going on. Like it's inseparable from it, and it is really good. And I look at the same way I did it too. Because I used to have my hair. Let me just see how long yours is, mate, from the side.
Yeah. This is going to be a first for our viewers, like a hair conscious conversation. So that's how long it is. If I drop it to the side, that's how long it is.
So mine was not as long as that. It was down past my neck.
Okay.
So I could have it in quite a long ponytail. And yeah, that was going through a change. That was when I was really getting into my yoga at the time and spirituality, and sort of adopted the image that came with that. And yeah, it was very transitional. And then there came a time to chop it off. And again, it wasn't like there was no loss. Like, should I, shouldn't I? I was like, all right, I'm ready to. I'll just cut it now. So not having attachment to the specific image, and like right now it's growing and I quite like it. It's like, oh, I'm just going to grow it again now and see where it goes. Because you're right, you go through those stages where it's got to push through a little bit because it gets a bit in man's land, but then it goes, that's nice. And yeah, so which I wouldn't have done. I wouldn't be growing it again if it wasn't for lockdown. It's always like, keep it nice, keep it neat, or I like a certain style because I'm not particularly neat with my hair.
Yeah.
It is very symbolic. And maybe we can talk about how the other cultures use it with the Native Americans and the yogis, while there's Buddhist monks, they shave their heads completely. And the parable in the Bible about Samson, and when his hair was cut from Delilah, that was the loss of his strength and power. There's also symbology through what that was actually representing. And yeah, it's there for a reason, right? So let's kick off with which one you want to tap into, man. What do you want to say about it?
Well, I was just going to mention that the idea or the notion that your hair is an extension of you as well. So if you look at a tree, we have the branches of a tree and we have the roots of the tree. The roots go deep within the earth. If you look at the human being, the branches of our tree are our hair and the roots are the nerves inside. So it's an extension of the inside world that's happening. So it's our way to connect with nature and the surroundings and the universe. And interestingly enough, bringing Native Americans to this, they believe, so if you remember, if you look at Native American pictures, you'll see that the guys rarely ever cut their hair. It's always long or braided, etc. Even when you get into the later ages, a lot of these elders had long hair, long thick black hair, so they retained their youth in their hair. And for them, it was a symbolism of connecting with mother nature, and having that connection with nature. Interestingly enough, they used it. The hair acts like an antenna, so it interacts with the Earth's electrical field, and you'll notice that sometimes your hair, especially when you grow it out, will have this static charge in the morning. So previously, in the previous podcast, we were talking about using a wooden comb. This is one of the reasons why we use a wooden comb. So first of all, is to not remove excess oil off the hair. So it is to remove excess oil off the hair. So when the wooden comb, when you comb it right through the hair, what it'll do is it'll trap the oils, the build-up oils on the comb itself, the wooden comb itself, and it'll distribute it evenly across the hair. Whereas with a plastic comb, what usually happens is you end up removing a lot. Either you end up removing too much of the oils, or you don't remove any of the oils, and depending on which side you're on will determine how much oil production will happen. And plus, you've got the static effect of the plastic comb as well. So there's that with the Native Americans. And funnily enough, there was a study, I think, done in the 1920s where they were, I think it was an American scientist who went into the to the rainforest, and what he did is basically the government told him that to pull out, the Native Americans that were foragers, and they were great at tracking. Now, what they did is when they introduced those foragers and brought them to the U.S. Army, what they will do in the U.S. Army is they'll shave your hair off. And as soon as they shaved their hair off, they lost their ability to track and to be able to kind of to connect with nature. And they couldn't figure out what happened, because when they saw them in the wild and when they were living in the tribes, they were amazing. These people were amazing at doing that. So when they did this study where they let some of the natives keep their hair in the U.S. Army, and the ones that did keep their hair, they were able to retain the ability to track properly. And I think the general consensus was that they were using the hair. I think it was the way the wind obviously interacts with the hair, and the way, certain sensations, again, it comes back to that antenna analogy, interacts with the object. It was allowing them to forage and to hunt a lot better.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's the extension of the nerve endings, isn't it, that allows that, and then the combination of you saying with the antenna, extend those senses. Which I remember looking at the same study actually about what they did to grow their hair and what they kept it for. And it's interesting. You look at the military where they told them they shave their heads, and it's like, why do they do that? And well, simple as it's a uniform and it's conformity. And there's also, you don't have to consider it. You don't have to spend time on a certain level of appearance. That's one of the benefits of a uniform. Here you go. Just put this on and keep your hair like this, and then you follow suit. But it also eradicates a lot of the individuality to it. It's expressed through our personal look or how we choose to look and dress, which is why other appearances rattle certain people, whether you've got people who dress like very well dressed in suits, or you've got goths, you've got hippies, you've got average dress, and everything's always saying something about who we are on the level of expression. And in your story you shared before, there was a point where people were giving you a bit of jip for how your hair was, but you were like, I'm not listening to that, I'm doing it my way. And a lot of that was what I experienced myself too, is when I was growing my hair, it's like, it's just what I want to do. And it is a nice way to make a stand in yourself on how your appearance is. As with everything, the cons and deficits are we take too much pride, and vanity can take over with appearance. And hair's also linked to that a lot, is how much consideration and care we give it. There's always the balance act, isn't there? Like from what you were saying in the last Ayurvedic podcast, and you've got beautiful hair, man. Love your hair, and you get many compliments on it. From what I know of you, it's not done from the perspective of vanity. It's done from taking care, because you know how to do it and the importance of it. While when we're, say, modeling or producing our hair, and without the understanding of the truth of why the benefits are there, not from the aspect of vanity. Who was it? Well, I can't remember that. I don't think it was a biblical parable, maybe a Greek one. But narcissism, and I can't remember the story guy's name, but he was looking into the river, a stream, and he saw how beautiful he was, and he got mesmerized by how pretty he was, because he was very well kept and chiseled, and his hair was gorgeous. And then he just kept looking at himself, and he went to grab himself, and he ended up drowning in the river. I think his name was something about narcissism, so that's where the word narcissism came from.
Right, interesting.
Well, that's how they describe it anyway in the Greek parables. So it was, look after yourself, but don't fall into vanity, and always where that difficulty is. And hair is I think it shows a lot about what stage we're at with how well we keep ourselves, whether we don't keep ourselves well at all, whether we just get rid of it for the sake of it, or we take care on the right level, like with the Ayurvedic products. And yeah, it is really interesting. And to go back to the shaving the heads of what the military do, and into another culture of, say, Buddhism, and the Buddhist monks, they shave their heads. You might be able to offer more insight on this. But from what I'm aware, it would show their commitment to their path, and to not worry about not to grow their hair, taught that because it can lead you into that self-image perspective. So they would just shave it off. And I think also to do with energy points, it would allow energy flow in. Or you've got the Hare Krishnas who just have that little one ponytail and shave the rest of it off. Again, as far as I'm aware, it's to do with energy perspective. Yeah, what we teach, what's taught in the Kundalini yoga is to grow your hair, because it's what you're saying with the Indians, the natives, is you've got your extension of nerve endings, and your perception and awareness expands by your hair, which is something I know the yogis say, like Sadhguru. He says, he grows his beard and his hair as long as it grows, and it'll stop where it's supposed to stop. Shaving all our body hair all the time and trimming, and it's nothing more than image. It's very little to do with cleanliness, like, shaving my armpits before in the past. It does really reduces the smell. But if you take care of yourself and you cleanse anyway and you eat them right, you're not going to have that smell with you anyway. So it's when we're always cutting certain parts of hair, and we're manscaping, or for women, cutting off every little follicle of hair off the body, it's like, where do we go into image? Because that's what it comes down to, really, and the acceptable image of the time. It's not like there'll be times where it was attractive to have a certain amount of hair, like pubic hair in the 60s or the 80s, big bushes and all that kind of stuff. It's like what the trend was. And then you move on to the 90s and 2000s, and everything's short, or there's no hair there. And it's just a movement of time on image and what we're finding attractive. Well, I think, as always, something we try to alliterate through our conversations is find the root of the principle of why it's happening, not the surface level, and see if there's benefit in your actions or in your choices. And yeah, growing hair, it's something I'm always been a fan of. And like, if it wants to grow. Sometimes when I've cut for ease, but I think there's actually, for the lifestyle that we choose, more benefits in having longer hair. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a couple of points that you pointed out, and I want to go into them. So the first one is, let's go back to the symbolic reason why you shave your hair when you go into the army. Now, in Hinduism, shaving your hair is a symbolism of a new start, a new birth. When you get rid of your hair, for example, we would do it. So I would get rid of my hair if a close relative passed away. So someone who's really close to me, like my family, someone from my family, or my first cousins, etc., then the hair would have to go. So even if it's this long and I waited, God knows, 4 years to grow it out, it would have to go immediately. So that is a indication that it's out of respect. You are respecting the passing of an entity from the material realm to the spiritual realm. Plus, you are saying that it's a new start for me. It's a new birth. You're restarting again. And if you remember in the Matrix, Neo, when he was reborn without any hair, and then his hair started growing after that. So again, it's quite symbolic of rebirth. And the second point is it was used as respect in that regards. But I think when the US Army were employing the natives, it was a way. So the natives believed that if you forcefully chop someone's ponytail off, it's a sign of disrespect. So if a native lost a battle with someone, like for example in the Game of Thrones, there's the culture of people called the Dothrakis, who are largely based on the Native American culture, where the hair was used. The longer your hair is, the more battles you've won. It means that you haven't lost yet. And as soon as you chop the hair off, it's a symbolic idea that you've lost a battle, or you're taking away a person's pride. And we look at the lion as well. When we shave a lion's mane, again, you're taking away the pride of a lion. And it's interesting how in today's society where we're not really, men with long hair, it's not a big thing anymore. It's not been a big thing for the last God knows how many years, but you get periods of time like the 60s and the 70s where men started growing their hair out. But in terms of general trends, it's not considered a main thing. Women are usually the ones to have long hair. And if you go back in the past, again, going to the native cultures, go to the other tribal cultures, men would have longer hair. And the same in the East, all of the gods are depicted with long hair. And again, it's a symbolic, it's a symbolism of the man's vitality as well. Having youth and vitality is to have long, lush hair. But then going back into the idea of renouncing your lifestyle and your material life into becoming a sannyasi or a monk or a hermit, it's symbolic of a restart. So you're restarting your life, shaving it off, and then you are now, like you said, you're no longer putting everything on the looks. You're letting go of that physical appearance, and you're deciding that is no longer a part of you anymore. So that's why they shave their hair off. And then, like you said, by the Hare Krishnas, it's also not just Hare Krishnas. It's a large part of the Vaishnavas, which are a sector of Hinduism, where the Hare Krishnas come in, and then my sector of Hinduism also comes in there. We would have one ponytail. So have you ever seen Star Wars? Of course you have. You're a big fan. You've seen the Jedis with their little ponytail that comes down. So a lot of them in the Jedi community, they would braid the hair as a ponytail, but in the Hindu tradition, it's usually just kept, just tied, but it's just one patch of hair that comes out, and that is to represent it's called a shikha, and if you look at all the temples in India, in the East as well, in Buddhism, they all have points. They're all like triangular or cone shape, and that's to show that the energy is drawn from the top of the tip and it goes into the base. So that's what that shikha represents. So when you die and the spirit leaves, it's got something to leave out of. But also, if you have long hair, I think it represents the same idea as well. So yeah, it's interesting how different traditions have different ways of representing hair and perceiving hair. But yeah, also, like you said, Sadhguru did mention that as an ascetic, especially one that's foraging on its own, it's better to have long hair. And especially not to cut your roots off. The ends. You don't want to be cutting your ends off, because I think it takes almost 8 to 12 months for the ends to become statically charged. So that's when you start interacting with the universe and the Earth's electrical field. So yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, it's basically. But also I want to mention that it's interesting in today's society how, again, it goes back to the previous podcast, because of the foods we're consuming, because of all the radiation that we're exposed to from our phones, from microwaves, etc. A large portion of guys these days, they tend to, I think it's about 60 to 70% of men lose their hair between I think it's the 20s, and then it goes up as you go into the 30s and the 40s, and by the time you get into your 50s, I think it's 90% of men will lose most of their hair in their 40s to 50s. And yeah, it's interesting how that's happened. Do you know anything about it, or do you have any idea why?
Oh, I mean, there's obviously the genetic implications too. Like my brother really started to lose his hair mid-20s. Like he's bald, and hair receding quite early, which comes from my dad's side. I've got the hair from my mother's side, which is a lot of it, and it just grows very well. And yeah, obviously as it got older, the receding hairline, like, it's coming back now, but the strength of the hair continues to flow through. So there's the natural elements, but also what you're saying, the implications of the environment, as probably does have a big effect on it, from what we're eating, and definitely, yeah, the computers around us, the electronic waves that are all having a massive effect towards it. Yeah, there is a big part of that. We're going to go into what you were saying before, with the shaving of the hair, from the military and the other cultures, like, in the Matrix, it is Neo's awakening, and he has no hair, and it's also in V for Vendetta. You seen that?
Yeah.
Natalie Portman, they use it as a strip of her identification. She's a girl, long hair, and they shave her head off. Yeah, in Star Wars, they have the Padwans, the trainers, they have that strip. And when they finish training, they cut that strip off.
Right.
So see it as when they're going through that training process. Okay, now you've matured, so they've probably taken that element from somewhere. Japanese samurai, they would have their hair, they'd have it in that little knot, and again, that would be cut at times if it's something for signification. Maybe like what you're saying about death. I think traditionally it would be a case of a defeat. So not in the sense of a humiliation, but there was a fault, there was an error here, and then so I lose that bit of not masculinity, but something that was of meaning, or to show a level of humbleness, perhaps. And that, mentioning the lion, as you said before, and the lion's mane, and that really brings to my sense, because when you think of a lion, you think of pride and proudness and strength. And it also comes back to the narcissist, seeing the vanity in the hair, or the image of where do you want that fine line between a healthy sense of pride in who you are, not pride in the sense of ego, like, oh, I'm proud of what I've done and I've achieved all this, but a pride in a sense of accomplishment and acceptance of it, but not to attach to it. So the pride in your appearance to the vanity aspect can be very difficult to walk that. So again, it's knowing your roots of why you're doing it, not being so concerned with the opinion of others. It's a very interesting topic to to go into the aspects of the hair and what it entails for us. And I mean, the British culture itself, as you were talking about the culture, like we keep the hair short, and you'd think maybe it's climate based as well. Does the longer hair keep you cooler, or is it, you'd think in hot countries maybe you'd shave it off and it would be cool, but does the hair have an effect that keeps you cool? Because in India it's traditional that it's generally long hair, right? Everybody had longer hair. Maybe with the colonization it happened around the world, people started to cut it shorter, and especially in the UK. And there's definitely a level of conformity that comes with the trend of short hair. Like the standard haircut was like the back and the sides, or a number 2, or you have it trimmed with a certain pattern. And it's funny. I wonder if it'll have a resurgence, because it kind of did, didn't it? The Russell Brand sort of era came over, and people were growing long hair out. But it's funny the level of identification that comes with it. And I say that from my own experience of when I was going right into my hippie phase and, growing my hair out. It was because I was identifying with that, but also it was something I'd never done. But as I grew it more, I become more identified with what comes with the long hair and the lifestyle. So it all tied in. It is that expression and a level of identification. Perhaps this time, having been through that period, it will just be I'm growing it because now's the time to grow it and see how that works for me, to monitor if any changes do occur. That will be interesting for me to see.
So again, we're going to go back into what we talked about previously and the cosmetics industry. And I feel as though that has been a huge part of it. So they've basically exploited the idea, the old traditional idea that having, thick, lush hair means that it's a symbolism of a person's youth and vitality, and that way they've been pushing products for people to use, and that's deteriorating people's hair. So again, it's like what you said previously in the previous podcast. You are masking issues that you've got, and the issues that are from within, maybe the psychological, maybe the even biological issues that you've got within, and instead of addressing those issues or accepting the change or the transformation, we've fallen trapped to this marketing ploy of, if you use this product, this is the result you'll get. And funnily enough, someone that we know, but I won't mention his name, they've received a hair transplant, and I was just thinking about the idea of taking a patch of hair from somewhere from the body and then placing it back on your head, and then feeling a sense of confidence and some sort of positive impact from that. And I just feel as though it shows that there's a deep underlying psychological issue there, and I think it's because you've put so much premise on the way you look. You put that on the pedestal as one of as a symbolism of who you are as a person. And I think again that attachment to one side or the other side is not good for us, especially in the lifestyle that we're living. I get it if you decide to become a monk or something and then you let go of your image. That's different because you are choosing to live a completely different lifestyle. But in order to be where we are right now, I think you have to definitely take that middle path and try and figure out, okay, why do I want to get my lips done, or why do I want to change the color of my hair? And, you know, you're putting poison into your hair. And again, look, there are traditions and there's evidence to say that for thousands of years, you know, different cultures have put colors in their hair, but the colors they've put in their hair have always been temporary. They've never been permanent. You know, you don't consciously bleach your hair, you don't dye, you know, you don't damage the actual hair follicles. And then obviously we straighten our hair, we curl our hair, all these kind of things destroy the hair. And then later on in life, when the negative effects start to come out, you start to mask those negative effects instead of allowing the body to recover and accept what's happening. So yeah, I just think it's something that we have to really put a microscope over and really look into it and figure out where are the psychological aspects of, obviously, what does the hair represent, and what is the sort of issue with putting so much emphasis on the way we look through our hair.
Yeah, like a good few things to dig. I mean, one, just starting with the bleaching of the hair, and I don't know that much about hair products, but if the bleach is the same as what we use bleach for, cleansing, or if it's another form, bleach just wipes everything out. Like, it sterilizes, doesn't it? That's what a bleach does. Now, I don't know if that's what the hair colorants are in a form, but if it's bleach, that's my understanding of bleach. So it's stripping everything of its nutrients, of its chemicals, of what's naturally there. And yeah, for what? It's for appearance. And, you know, there's times when, like, I'm going to change my hair and I want to feel like doing something different. Like, you know, great, but at what cost? Because I think doing these things temporarily to do it, to figure it out, all right, you know, give it a go. But if it becomes a permanent part of your lifestyle and you're doing it every 2, 3, 4 months, like maybe once every year, every few years, okay. If that damage can be recouped and it's not a permanent issue, fine. But it's more often than not in society's cases, we do it for the image because we're told what to do. And like you say, when the years go on, those things are so dead that it requires more effort and more chemicals. It will just pollute the body even more because we're not comfortable with the image, because we're not happy how we are, which is the issue, which is the underlying issue. And you mentioned the hair transplants. I've 2 friends who've done that. The first one was maybe 3 or 4 years ago that I noticed it. And he was sharing it. He put it on Instagram at the time because he was just being out with it. A friend from college, and I was thinking, like, wow, you know, that's it. In my eyes, it was extreme and heavy. But again, I'm not that person, so I can't say, oh, all you got to do is get past it. You know, we are in a culture in this age where it is very much about our image and our ego, and you know what's out from us, which is dangerous, and I think that needs to be looked at. But you know, noticing that my hair was going back, I was like, you know, if I lost my hair, how would I feel? And I'll be like, I'd just have to embrace it. Like, I'll just switch my perspective and change it. Because we're associating it so much with how we look is our ability to function in the world, to maybe strike up business, maybe to have an attractive partner, maybe what we think of ourselves, you know, when people looking at the mirror and, oh, my waistline's this and it's gone up and down. And, you know, talking to clients currently through this, like, oh, I've put a few pounds on and meet, like, people have indulged. Fine, accept that. But know that it's not because of lockdown. It's because you've not wanted to balance how things are at the time. You've used the time to do that. And again, you might have needed that time out, but that doesn't mean you go off the bandwagon. You indulge. We're always looking for the middle path, aren't we? And it's like, it's not criticism to us. It's just saying that that's a result of your actions. As is, if we, you know, want to change our hair or we want to change our body, like, be comfortable with where you are, but know that if you're uncomfortable, it's through the choices. Like, if you've indulged and you put weight on, you probably knew you weren't going to be happy feeling like that, but we follow that path down, and it's only when we've hit the stump and go, oh crap, that's happened now I've got to reverse it. But then be okay with that part too. That way we don't have to put so much stress and tension on ourselves. Is it, we accept that we've done it, we made the decisions, now I'm going to change it. As opposed to what you said about the hair transplant. Like, it's a very traumatic and painful process for the body to go through. Again, I'm not that person who's gone to those points. So I don't know how they're truly feeling, but it's, what is it associated with? Why is there that much power that you're willing to go through that to make that alterations, for whatever reason that is for that person. Again, it's not for me to judge and to say, maybe there's more deep rooted issues there. But if it's surface rooted on, it's about my appearance, then it's no different from the cosmetic surgery for women to plump the lips or get breast implants, or because confidence is coming by us doing those things, right? That's why we do them, because we either want to be confident or we want to look better, or we think that that's going to be the root fix. But, and I will say this, and I truly believe it, that root fix has not gone away. That will have moved somewhere else. It's like, oh, my hair's done now, or my breasts are done now, my lips or my eyes, whatever, or six-pack machine. The reason that you wanted to do that in the first place has not changed. You've just literally masked it in such a convincing way that it's fine now. No, because if that happens somewhere else, that same feeling is going to come about, and you can just mask it again, but you've not eradicated the feeling through looking at it and reflecting on, why do I need this to feel better? Why do I need this to feel powerful or confident or sexy or strong? That's what needs to be looked at. And once that's been accustomed, okay, if you still want to do it, fine, but you probably won't, because you've understood the mechanisms behind the movement to do that surgery, to get that change in your physical appearance, because I'm not worthy or powerful without it, which is very sad, very sad. But again, it's not to say what's right and wrong. The person has to look at that. It's just we're so rammed into going, just get the image fixed. Don't worry about the reasons why I feel insecure. That's what we need to look at. Why do you feel insecure? Why is it required? Can you develop the strength and the heart and the authority to be yourself for yourself, however you look? Because how you're looking, it's not who you are. It can be a representation of, but you can represent it in so many other ways by your actions. Don't judge the book by its cover, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I completely agree with that. And just to tie in with that point where one issue leads to another issue. Just because you mask one issue doesn't mean that issue disappears. It leads to another issue.
Sorry, but did the mic's gone?
Can you hear me?
It's gone very crackly.
I have no idea what's good. I'm back. I think it's just my connection here. I just think today is one of those weird days where the connection is just not that great, because I think for a bit you froze. I could hear you, but your image just kind of stayed the same. So yeah,
hair, man, it needs longer hair.
That's probably what's happening. That's what's causing the static interference. But yeah, it's interesting you said about the how one issue obviously ends up relating to another issue because you've just masked that issue and you haven't really fully solved it. It's like trimming the branches but not getting to the root cause of the problem. And I feel as though if you look back at those days where you were bodybuilding and you know, trying to chase that physical aesthetic image, when you achieve that image, how did you feel? It felt great for maybe like a week or maybe 2 weeks or maybe going up to a couple of months or something, but then by the end of it you realize that you feel exactly the same, no different than you did previously. And yeah, it goes, like I said, it ties in with what you were saying. And one of the reasons why that happens is because we're so fixated, like we're a child that wants a toy. You know, you tell your parents, I want this one toy. You want a Game Boy. Back in our days, we wanted a Game Boy or a PlayStation, and your parents say no unless you do this and this and that, and I'll get you one. And then once you receive it and you played with it and you've enjoyed it, it becomes boring. It's like, oh, I've got it now. What's next? And then all we're doing is we're chasing the next thing. And again, we're piling on different layers on ourselves and just adding more issues instead of taking issues away. We're not resolving those issues. And I went through the same thing with training wise. You know, I started training because of the typical goals. You know, you want to look good, you want to get women, etc. And it actually transitioned into my hair as well, because when I was growing my hair out, originally it was a pure intention, is because I felt as though I was changing as a human being. I was transforming into a different person. I was evolving. And then the attention I got from growing my hair out, and I was like, oh, this feels really great. And then it shifted from being introspective to externalized. And I was just chasing people's approval, you know, just saying, oh, you've got really beautiful hair. And it got to a point, and I remember mentioning this to a few of my close friends, that now when I receive that compliment, I don't get it very often now, because obviously most people that I surround myself, you know, I know them and they know me now, so they've either given me the compliment before or they just decided not to give me the compliment at all. But now it's got to a stage where when someone new says it to me, I don't get any satisfaction whatsoever. So when someone comes over to me and says, I don't know if you've been told this, you probably have, but you got really beautiful hair, I'm just like, thank you, but then it doesn't. The gratitude isn't registered as it was previously, where you don't accept that as gratitude anymore. You just accept it as, oh, it's just another, a fan mail. So if you look at all the celebrities, when they receive fan mails, I think you're the most amazing person in the world. I'm your number one fan. Yeah, you'll be happy about the first 20, maybe the first 100. But then once you keep receiving it over and over again, it diminishes the value of that. And I felt like that's what it did. And then once you hit that plateau, then you start to accept it. It's just another extension of you. It's just a physical appearance. It doesn't really mean anything. You've rode that roller coaster, and now it's just not fun anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting that, using that analogy of fans and celebrities, because it's funny, because on the same side as and this is why it's difficult, because those fans who are writing those letters or whatever, or giving a compliment, for them it can be a big thing to say to that person, I really love your work. I really love what you do. I really like your hair. I really like you teaching, whatever it is. And for that celebrity or person to be like, yeah, or, you see the jaded ones and they're like, whatever, or they walk past the fans, they've not got time, which again is acceptable because they have a hell of a lot of it. They're going to get to that point. I think it's sad if that the acknowledgement of what that person has come to say or to offer out is thrown to the side. That's unfortunate for the celebrity to do that. So they have to be very difficult, because celebrity is an extreme, isn't it? There's no denying it's an extreme lifestyle, because they have to do that so much. How can they be in that position where they can be thankful and sit down and respond to every single one? Like, I struggle responding to all my bloody messages in a day. Like, I'll leave them now just because the pressure I would feel doing that, it wasn't serve me well. I used to feel rude if I wasn't getting back to people straight away, but it's like, it's unhealthy for me. So I'll put that to the side and get back to it when I can. Now, this is just my friends and clients. Like, what about these celebrities who are getting millions of people? This is social media again, like all these comments, how lovely it is on happy birthdays. In fact, this ties in very nice to that point. I used to make a point on my birthdays to go through every comment of everybody who said, happy birthday, Craig, happy birthday, Craig. And, rather than just set a like or love, it would be, thank you, hope you have a good day, thank you. And, there's quite a few messages on there, 30, 40, 50, whatever it is. And I was speaking to my friend about it for this year, actually, saying, my friend gave me some good advice. She was like, well, just like it. I'll put the love heart. And if they've took the time to write a specific message to you, respond to that. If it's just happy birthday, Craig, which is a second to write, just leave a like. And I was like, that's a really good way to look at it, to weigh out the value of the effort that's gone in. Because even though someone's saying happy birthday or I like your hair, it might just be a very passive thing. But if someone's gone, they've put some thought into it and effort into it, then it's different. So the response can be different. But we're going off track a little bit here. There's something else I wanted to say. What were your points again? Sorry, mate. It was using, when you pretty much covered it there. When you receive a form of, gratitude from someone for displaying something, maybe it's your skill or maybe it's just the way you look. I think I want to just move the topic into this as well, go a little deeper into it. I think when it's something that you've done and you've worked towards doing it, so you worked hard at it. So for example, if I'm a musician and I've worked my balls off to get where I am, and someone comes over to you and says, look mate, I really appreciate your music. I think for me personally, I feel like you said, it's one step further than just sending a quick happy birthday message. It goes deeper, and then you feel as though you need to reply to that. You need to respond to that in a form of respect. And I feel as though anything that I've done and someone is grateful for that. So for example, the classes I teach or the stretches I'm giving out, etc., and someone really appreciates the time you've taken to help them out, you definitely feel a sense of, you need to respond to that accordingly. But when it's something you haven't really deserved, like I haven't really deserved the long hair. Like I have no idea what's good. Hopefully this is recording, but I just think it's just through the connection of this. But like I was saying, it's when you do something and you've worked towards doing that, like the skills that you've got, and someone, like for example, your breathwork, you probably receive amazing messages for your breathwork and how it's changed people's lives and stuff. You really feel satisfied and you feel like you've done something to help people out, and it makes you feel great. But then if you've got something, for example,
you know, the way you look, or, you know, for me, my hair, when someone comes over to me and says, you've got really gorgeous hair, for me, it's not putting down their sort of gratitude towards me, but I think it's more to do with, I don't think I haven't done anything to deserve it. I was born this way. You know, I can't really help myself from looking the way I do. And I feel for me personally that I don't tend to reward myself for that. You know, I don't tend to kind of look at that as a big thing. So if someone comes over to you and says, you know, you're a really beautiful person, this and that, it doesn't really resonate. Whereas if you say to someone specifically, you know, the way you said this and that's really impacted my life, yeah, that makes you feel really good. Have you ever noticed that in yourself, where if someone mentions your appearance or something that's very superficial, to them it might not be superficial, like you said, to them it might be a big thing because that might be their whole world. But for you, it's like, you haven't really done anything to deserve what you've got in that sense. But if you've done or you've worked towards something, then that means something more to you.
Yeah, I think you've distinguished that really healthily, man. I think that's a really good add-on to what I was saying previously. You've done that very well, because if we're feeding that somebody's coming to say your hair is incredible, you're like, well, yeah, it's just my hair. And that's great. That is really good, and that's healthy, and it's really good you've said that out, because whether that person might want it, that might be a big thing to them. It's also a reflection on where we're at consciously and where we are in our lives. Like, oh, this person's really into hair, or they're really into looks or whatever. That doesn't mean you can't compliment and say, you know, you tell your partner or a friend, oh, you look really pretty, you're really handsome. Like, oh, thank you. You know, it's nice. But it's not, again, it's that distinction between pride and vanity. Is, do we go, oh, yeah, I am good looking. I do look at the hair, you know what I mean? You get away with that. I could be like, thank you for that. That was nice. And the value that the other person puts in it. It might be so easy to go, oh man, you're looking good. Or it might be somebody's like really nervous to tell that girl or that boy that they think they're really pretty and attractive. That can be a big thing. So it's always weighing up, isn't it? You're right. But the way you just said that is probably the healthiest way to do it. Is it's self-image. It's like, you know, it doesn't matter. Like from when you said, oh, Craig, your hair's changed since the last time. Like, yeah, it's growing. That there'll be times where I'll be like, oh, are they going to say something about my hair? Or I'll feel nervous because I've changed my hair. Or I'll take that compliment and be like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. I'm going to grow my hair. Once you've hit a point of, again, self-understanding of what matters to you and what doesn't matter, is somebody's opinion about my hair. It doesn't matter. I'm doing this because I'm just doing it. That's it. There's not really been any thought into it. It's just organically happened, which is great. And that also reflects mindset. If something organically, naturally comes about, great, you know, go with it. Or are we doing it for a reason? Am I growing my hair as I did prior? One, because I hadn't done it, but there was also that element of it reflects who I am. And it's going to be, all that did was put me more into the identification of the hippie vegan yogi at the time. Oh, that's what I do. I grow my hair and it's all chilled and, you know, smoke a few joints. And it was all just the identification with that persona, which is fine because we're always doing that. We're always doing that. You know, I know there are groups that try to be very normal and they will live a certain way in normality, which is also choosing to adopt a style, whether we're flamboyant or whether we're quiet about whatever. We're always choosing it. So it's fine, but choose for the right reasons, express for the right reasons, grow hair for the right reasons. Rather than solely identification. I do believe the identification is a part of understanding who we are. Like I never regret, you know, you spoke about the gym earlier. Oh, that was a point I wanted to make actually. But you know, going to the gym, and I don't regret any of that, you know, the lifestyle I was living. You know, I was drinking a lot, I caused myself some damage and didn't, unhealthy mind attitudes, and the way I lived was damaging. But I don't regret it because I had to do that to understand that isn't the answer that I wanted through. It's part of the process. It's if we keep repeating them and we're not changing to go from, say, the gym junkie, big and going out all the time, into the spiritual vegan hippie with the long hair and passive and letting things be. Like there's lessons in both of them. None of them are the right way to go. They're just a way to go. And we learn as we go through that process. And I'm in one now, wherever I am now. I'm doing it. Maybe I won't see it until I come out of it, but it's always that transition and trying to be as clear and as see-through with ourselves as possible. There's so much to be brought in from that. Like that is in development. That is not attached to where we are. Like if the hair grows, the hair grows. If the hair's short, the hair's short. You know, I've got no reason to do either of them. there's pros and cons of both, as we discussed the benefits of long hair. Great, I'll go with that. But if I hold on to that and be like, I know I need long hair because that's the receptors of my nerves, and it helps me become more aware, and I'm attached to something rather than that's a benefit, so I'll do that. But if it changes, it changes. And there was a point I wanted to reflect on, actually. You mentioned before, like when you were younger and you'd get a Game Boy or whatever, if you do certain hobbies, you get an allowance. Like, I see that in a different way, maybe complimentary, maybe not. But I remember there was a time I had a Nintendo magazine and they gave you a little cardboard cutout of a GameCube. So I don't know what era this come out, man. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, that was in early 2000s, so 2001, 2002.
So, how old was I then? I was born in 88.
You were about 11.
About 11, right?
Yeah,
so,
11,
not a big concept of money. I'd had a paper round and whatnot. And then we had this little cardboard GameCube that they used as a money box. It was very clever, actually. They did that so people would save up and you'd get to buy one because you'd put all your money in it. And I was saving up pound coins and doing chores and whatnot. And, I had this little box of money. I wrote down how much money was going in and put notes in it. And it took me a long time, working class background, didn't have much money and whatnot. And it was like a big deal. And I saved up for it. And my dad took me on midnight to the game shop in Stockport to go and buy it. And I was that age. And I tell you what, man, it meant the world to me to have saved that money and to be rewarded by my parents to doing chores, to get bit money here and there and, do my paper round. And it never lost its value to me, and we can talk about this in contrast to your opinion because they're both very valid in the thing that we're doing. But having that and buying it and always having immense joy from the games I was playing or knowing I bought this, I saved up for this, it didn't ever lose its value for me in that sense. I never got complacent with it. One, I loved the games, but also I remember it so clearly because it was a big deal going to the shop, getting in the queue, having this. I took the box with me that I'd saved up all the money, and it's it's a wonderful memory, but that didn't get complacent to me, if that makes sense. What's your views towards?
No, I completely agree with that. I think it's the fact that, again, it goes back to what we just said previously. You worked your ass off to get that. It wasn't just given to you. And some parents and some kids are in a fortunate situation where the parents can buy the kids anything. And I think there are obviously pros and cons to that, but I feel like there are probably more cons to that than pros because you become very complacent and you feel as though, you get something just because you demand it, or you almost become very... So let's say if your parents say to you, look, if you do this and if you do that and if you're patient and do that, you will get this reward. And through that, you either learn the art of discipline, or what happens is you go the opposite way, which is now... the protocol, what you need to do in order to just get the reward. Once you got the reward, you go back to being the person that you were before. So we have to find that fine balance between the two. And I felt as though my parents are very strict, and I really respect and I really look back now and I feel as though, I'm so glad my parents brought my siblings and I in this way. So we never got game consoles, etc. I remember we got a PC when I was 10 or 11, and that was our first sort of introduction to the gaming world. And we used to play on emulators and ROMs. Obviously, it was illegal, but we used to download like emulators and ROMs. But yeah, I remember how even then, like it goes back to what you said. My brother and I would have to literally back then go through the internet and search for these ROMs and emulators, making sure that we try each one out, making sure that they're compatible with the games. So when you start playing those games, you've earned it. You've gone through that hard struggle and you finally, you managed to get the game to run, and maybe it's not running in the best way, but you appreciate it so much. And I remember back then when we were downloading all these emulators, my friends were having the latest games and stuff, and then we were playing those same games on the PC, and people were like, how are you doing this shit? But again, it was, we literally had to... We have to go out there on the internet and search for those emulators and games, and yeah, and I just remember
back then, man, it wasn't simple. Like I remember that my friends would have it, and they give us like Pokemon and a Game Boy emulator and Sega games on the computer, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
And they were like wizards. They were tech wizards, and they were. Yeah, I remember getting it and having that same feeling, like, wow, this is so great. This is so good.
Yeah, and I think it also goes into the point, and we're probably going to go backwards in the conversation, but I just thought of this right now. So one of the reasons why maybe as not even a celebrity, as mere people like us, when we receive so many compliments and it gets to that tipping point where a compliment isn't really a compliment, it's because of the amount of people we're exposed to today. You know, what do they say? You tend to have about 150 people that in is it one given time or a lifetime that come into your life and they're part of your life. I think it's where you are right now. I think about 150 people are part of your life somehow, or you know them. So if you look at all the people that we know from Block, all of your friends, etc., from your personal life, etc., if you all put them into one group, it's about 150 people that on average a person knows at one given time. And that's all we can track. We can't track more than that many people. And if you go back to the tribal days, you know, these communities were small, very small tribes, maybe spanning that many people in that group, so 200 people, 150 people. But then once you go beyond that, and now you're exposed to more people with social media and how the internet has created a smaller world, it becomes very difficult to now appreciate or to give time to individuals at that personal level. So sometimes you might just brush something off, not knowing that you're brushing it off. You know, you're just trying to respond to it as soon as possible, and you might offend someone in that process. And I think that's something you just have to accept. That's just the way the world is. And if someone feels quite bitter about it, then I think you need to kind of take it on the chin and just say, you know what, it wasn't meant to be that way. You know, it wasn't supposed to come out that way, but it's just, you got to understand where I am and my perspective as well.
You know what, man, it's a very important topic piece, because it's highlighting actually my desire to create a smaller community of people who I am responsible with and for, and as they are themselves, which I'm looking at setting up a breathwork tribe now. You know, doing all these sessions online has been incredible. It's something I want to commit to with people who feel the same towards it as I do, especially while we're still online. Because it was just today thinking, my friend James has set up this online platform where all the material and content will be stored there, and it's all in one place. And, you know, he sent this message 4 days ago. My other friend from Spain, she sent a message to me 3 days ago. I haven't called a friend back. And it's like, I used to really beat myself up and like, right, rush, get through. But now I don't, you know, like the birthday example I used before. It's like the state of the modern age is, anybody can get in touch with you at any moment, at any time. We can even see if you've read the message. I can see if you're online and you're ignoring that message. Now, that's not coming through malice. It's like, you know, it's not just you. And we have to understand that person trying to get in touch is not the only one, especially in roles that might be where you're in the public field. You do your classes and whatnot. And I will always get back to people. I'll always read the message. It might be a week now. And I don't want to say that I'm being too slack with it, actually, because I was way too much the opposite way and felt so much pressure to attend to other people and make sure everything's all right. Or even if they're just asking a question like, how are you? It's like, oh, I've got to get back and let them know. And there was so much pressure in that. And, you know, I've learned very well to ease off that now. And I'm comfortable with it. And I'm just allowing that comfortability to grow to reduce that pressure. But I really love the messages and I really love talking to people. And, you know, there's so much going on. And it's like, I will not feel now, if I send someone a message, I'm not obliged that they get back to me. If it's urgent, I will call them. And that's how it should be. Not like, this guy's read my message and not got back to me. Well, if you care that much, ring them and speak to them and leave a voicemail, because people know that that's a different way of getting in touch now. If someone leaves you a voicemail, it's like, I need to listen to this message because it's urgent. While if it's a WhatsApp or an Instagram, it's not urgent. And that's how I see it now. But with the decision to make smaller community groups, because they will take my priority. I will be there for those people, and we'll be working together all every day. You know, we'll be there. Like, I'll check in at a certain time and I'll check out at a certain time before bed. That way it's consistent, and that way that's got the priorities of time. And that's just lifestyle. And I think for people like ourselves who essentially have these groups and collaborations, it has to be fizzled out, because you just can't take that back. And even to people who this is, you know, the likes on social media or the messages or the comments, it's like, even if you're not doing the frame of work that we do, there's still so much pressure to get back to these people or post that image today to make sure my content is still up. And if you're not sharing something of worth, why is it that pressure to do that, you know? And even if you are doing something of worth, remember to take time out, because there's so much going into the mind of accepting that pressure of social media not just appearance of what we're talking about our hair before, that's another level of it, but also the, you know, getting into social media and being responsible for a certain level of content. Like this, we do this every week. We're not really too pressured. You know, we want them out by the Thursday or Friday. So we have those days to play with in between. Or when we were up and running, we were recording 2-3 in a week because we loved it, and we still will continue to do that. But there's no pressure in there because it'll go up Thursday and Friday. We've got all that time beforehand to get it done. You know, there's more pressure, I suppose, on your end with the editing and getting it together. So I have to respect that and keep that in mind. But it's very flowy. It's very smooth. While if we're just posting content for the sake of it, or an image of ourselves, and then we're feeling we need to get a certain amount of likes or a certain amount of images per day, it's just burden of stress. The same thing as I've got to reply to this guy and get back to that message and make sure this is done. It's like burden. For what purpose? For what?
Yeah, definitely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's the purpose behind everything that we do. And like you said, with the podcast, we were doing this without a camera. If you remember back in the days when I think it was the reason why we didn't start doing the podcast early on is because you were moving houses. So we wanted to make sure that you've got a stable base before we start doing this podcast. But if you remember, we used to meet up at Chapter 1 like almost every week, once a week, and we used to have our conversations. And this is just no different to us, apart from having a few gadgets around us that are recording us. And I think people can really resonate with that. When a message is organic and it has a purpose behind that message, people can really resonate with that. But when it's just spewed out continuously and it's just like, maybe what people tend to do is they tend to put it on the physical appearance, you know, spew out the same image. There's only so many angles that you can take pictures of yourself, and there's only so many different sort of perspectives you can show people physically. Well, that's where that comes in. You know, you can display a different type of yoga pose, but for people like us, like for me, there's only so many different type of handstands I can do, and there's only so much stuff I can do in the rings. But yeah, I just think there's that added pressure to display that, you know, to display that amazing feat on social media, or give that amazing, you know, message that really drives home. But I don't think it has to be that way. I just think you just need to maybe treat social media like you normally treat your normal life, which is, you know, if you do something great and you've got a positive message to share, stick it out there. But God, if you've got nothing to share and you're creating podcasts, or you're having conversations and, you know, you're just talking about your daily life, like, hey, how are you doing, and this and that, it doesn't have any purpose behind it. It doesn't really help anyone out, and it's just you talking in your head, but instead you want to talk out loud and record it. It's just garbage. It gets lost in the noise. And yeah, I just want to go back into the responding to messages. I think it comes. You've definitely hit it. You're doing it the right way. I think it's the balanced way of doing it. Treat social media and treat those messages and put them into layers. You know, if someone's messaging you on WhatsApp or on Instagram, and you know for sure it's not an urgent message because you've read through it. They've seen that you've read it, so that's a tick there. But also what that was there for originally was so that people can say, okay, that person received my message and they've read it. It's not to create the insecurity, but what's happened is it's created insecurity. Oh, this person, there's 2 blue ticks on my WhatsApp. He's read my message, has come online. I can see him, he's online, and he hasn't responded. What the hell's going on? And I think that's also an insecurity of the dating industry as well, the dating apps, where, you know, someone has read your message and they haven't responded. It means that they don't like you anymore. And again, it's a reflection of what's going on inside. It's problems that you've got that you need to address. But instead of addressing them, you're putting it out there. I've got friends, funnily enough, who who are talking to people online, and, you know, maybe 1 person out of 10 is a great conversation, everything's going so well, but then they've taken the time out, you know, they've had a busy day or something, and they've just taken the time out to work on their busy day and not respond, and this person's just gone full 180 and just gone insane on the person. I'm just like, what the hell's going on? I've just received screenshots of these messages and like, well, from what you sent to me yesterday, it sounded like things were going perfectly, and then boom, this comes out. And it just shows we're so driven by quick results, or, you know, instant gratification. Give me attention and no one else. And I think it's not healthy for us at all. I think you just have to move with the times and appreciate what that platform is there for. That platform is there for you to connect with people from around the world, hit a bigger audience. But then at the same time, we still have our time zones. If it's 12 o'clock here, it's going to be God knows I think it's 5:30 in India, and if you go further in Australia, it'll be like 11 o'clock at night or something. So you've got to understand, you've got to respect people's times and where they are in the world. And I just think we don't have that. It's all about me and why are people not responding to me and this and that. And again, it goes back to everything we've just covered in this podcast, which is, it goes back into the realms of blaming ourselves and going into physical appearances and changing that as a way to push the message that I'm okay, but mentally I'm not really not.
Yeah, man. It's, what you said there is on the point of the insecurity comes through, like, these tools, the technology we have, they're great, but we have to be mature enough to use them. We really do. It's like giving the internet to a kid is like giving the toddler a loaded gun. Like, here's all the knowledge in the universe. And if these kids aren't trained to use it, it's just because you're still developing your egos and levels of personality. And yeah, I mean, we struggle now in what, like, this issue we're talking about, it has to be done very delicately and understand that the tools, use them for the tools. Again, like we always say, see the purpose. If you've got WhatsApp and you see those texts and they've not got back to you, it's like, oh, I'm not valued enough. They can't respond to me straight away. And it's like, maybe that guy's loaded with work, or maybe he's tired, maybe he's upset, maybe someone's died, whatever. Choose one of the other opinions rather than making it about ourselves. And it's actually, I took that tick thing off. I saw that one of my mates had done it. I thought, I'm going to do that too. So I can't see when people have read the message. I think you get the grey ticks if it's gone through or something. Like,
if they've received it.
Yeah. So I don't know if they've read it or not, but for that exchange, for the exchange of you not being able to see it, for them not to see you, you can't see them. And I was like, great, very happy with that, because there's just no pressure on any side. And it's like, I accept that. I get to drop my own importance of they've not replied to me. And, maybe it gets to go the other way as well. It's like just a message, just the technology of what we can truly use it for what it is, without the value of what's my level of importance compared to that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, how does a person in the modern age transition to that maturity? I think you just have to go through it, don't you?
Yeah, again, why does it matter so much to you? Like, why do we value it so much? And I always leave my phone on Do Not Disturb. And it's great because I don't get all these messages from the WhatsApp groups or Instagram comments or Facebook. Or the only downside is I miss phone calls, but rarely do people call me anyway, other than, rarely do we get called because we generally just use WhatsApp, come to think about it. And that really shows that nothing is really that pressing. Nothing is really that urgent. I remember Abs at a point when we go to bed is flight mode, put the phone away. And Abs was getting used to it. She's like, what if someone happens in my family? I'm like, if something happens in your family, it's happened in your family. There's nothing you can do right away anyway. And that it's, that worried mentality, the FOMO, that we're missing out on something. We're missing out on the comment or the like or the image or the dopamine hit or something might happen to my family at night. And it's like, remember when we didn't have mobile phones, how much simpler it was.
God, yeah.
Didn't have those worries to contend with or think that we're not doing the right thing or we're not there for someone. And I understand very obviously why that's there, but it's like, that's not helpful for us that we think that. So the phone will go off because, one, it's not good for you to have it by your head and sleeping anyway. But to also decompress, I'm having that day away from the social media or for the phone, like take away that option to be in contact with, because we don't need it. The only things that we're constantly in contact with are things that are damaging for our mental health, Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I think, even in today's age right now, where we are right now, I think I put a message up today on my social media, on my Instagram, about introspection. You've got a great opportunity to turn that phone off, because the thing is, most people at the moment are either furloughed or they're working from home, so you've got nothing going around you anyway. So you're less likely to get calls from people saying something bad's happened, because you're not getting out of the house anyway. Most of us are not getting out of the house. A few of us are. But it's just, it's a great opportunity to, again, like you said, put it on flight mode, put the phone in the bloody in the drawer and just leave it there the whole day. And just see how life is. Like, go back to those. It's funny because we were talking about this, because I was having this 90s nostalgia over the last 2 weeks or so, and I just didn't know why. And I was going through these. I was watching Jurassic Park, maybe that's why as well. But looking at it, and I was just thinking, looking at the way they were dressing and the way you know, the way they talk to people and how, in order to get a message through, it was literally just through phone call or just through a text. And even with text, remember, we were restricted to a certain amount of characters. I think it was about 200 characters. And you had to, I used to really struggle with this, which is basically when someone sends a text and they put mate as in M and 8. Stuff like that, it used to take me like 10 minutes to decipher. It's like you're looking at a completely different language. You're deciphering the hieroglyphics. And it used to take me a while to decipher the message because it just wasn't the way I was speaking. And then when I got used to it, then WhatsApp and everything came out and the people started talking properly again. I'm like, for God's sake, now I'm going to go back to the normal way of talking. But it's a format there for you to send those quick messages. Just because they've got rid of that character cap, it doesn't mean that the importance of the phone call has gone. You know, you like you said, there's different layers. If you send a text, or if you send a WhatsApp message, or if you send an Instagram message, then in terms of importance, it's not that important. But then as you start dropping voicemails or asking the person to meet up in person, then it starts to increase the importance of meeting that person, and you start to appreciate it more as well. So I think we just have to respect those layers, those compartments, if you want, and maybe even teach it to kids, because the thing is, our age or our era was the only group of people that, you know, we went through that phase where we practically remember a time when we didn't have phones at all. You know, it was just us and talking to our friends, and if you wanted to meet up with your friend, you tell them at a spot that you're going to meet up with. So we didn't have GPS as well, so you tell them at that spot at that time, and if that person wasn't there within a certain amount of time, you knew something was wrong, or you would go to the house. Yeah, basically, or they just would be like, you know, this person's unreliable, screw him. And I've been in those situations before where my friends would just be like, screw him, he's not here on time, so he'll just catch up with us. And I think it's the fear of missing out. It was the fear of missing out in that time where you had to make sure that you were there on time. And I think today's generation just doesn't have that, because they've grown through that. And I just wonder, I'm always interested by what they are thinking, because for them, a phone is something they've grown up with, whereas for us, it was never the case. So how do you teach a new generation of kids that this is what life is supposed to be like? It's supposed to be organic, not based on a device.
It's really interesting, isn't it? It's like we're the bridge, and there's a lot of responsibility. It will come, not in a sense of weight, but just to teach generations how to use it carefully. I mean, I've mentioned it before. My nephew, like 4 years old, amazing on the iPads, like on the phones, and great at it. Like, it's the evolution, it's the organic movement. I just hope we don't get too entwined into technology. Like, I'm not a fan of technological integration with humans. I don't like that. Doesn't mean it's not the right path. It just seems quite unnatural. You know, when you split the groups of what's natural from earth and nature and what isn't, mechanical machinery does the thinking for you. And, you know, it's like, I mean, let's get speculative and predict if the machine takeover is going to happen, if the AI comes in, or if humans get so far from their own humanity, and we become so self-absorbed in the sense of wanting to be better, wanting to be above natural capabilities. So we rely on mechanical enhancements, bioengineering, cloning, you know, and all this stuff. It's like it can go two ways. I'm definitely in the camp of moving with nature, and, you know, it's like anything that's from machinery is a copy of what we can do naturally. And I think of the internet is just the idea of conscious minds sharing ideas together and communicating through telepathic means or through a different form of communication. Like, that's an ability, you know, when you just think of somebody and they call you. It happened to me this morning, actually. I was thinking of my mate, and he'd sent me a pretty deep message about something he's going through. And today I just woke up and go, I'm going to message this guy, and he'd already messaged me. You know, things like that. I believe they're on layers that once upon a time humans were more connected to this level of understanding. Again, Jung's collective consciousness, or the unconscious aspects that we're always talking through. I believe we could all choose to work towards that development and evolution of that level of awareness, or we can take the mechanical route where it's done for us and we use the internet, and our own natural abilities become subsided, and our in touch with nature goes. I mean, again, so let's look at this. This is the same conversation but you've got society where you could build your houses and buildings and structure into the trees and into ground and have water flowing through and like, you know, lovely ways of harmonizing with nature. Or you can build concrete cells that are away from any nature, which, you know, Manchester pretty much is. There's just blocks of buildings and there's no feature of nature there. It's all just created man-made without that thought in line. So we can choose which way we're going to go, and how we want to be in life. Like, do we still see ourselves as separate from nature, and do we go into creating ourselves a world that's away from it, you know, still trying to subdue and wrestle nature and become something from it? But it's not to say, I mean, there's so much beauty in technology and being able to talk to people across the world and do what we're doing now. And I love it. I really do. It's just, we need enough people to see the dangers and the responsibilities of harnessing it correctly and using it for the right means, you know, not to become solely dependent on it. I was watching the new episode of Rick and Morty yesterday.
I was just going to mention that to you right now.
Yeah, he takes it out, doesn't it? He's like trying to teach them life skills, and they're just like, no, video games and getting high, you know. And it's like, just not good. It's not. There needs to be. It is good if it's balanced and if we understand its place, you know, its role. Because when we shy away from it, we're missing out on so much. I had a conversation with my friend about VR. He's like, what do you think on virtual reality? And I was like, again, pros and cons. It's incredible because you can use it to learn. A doctor could really be, you feel like you're there on very good VR. You are, your brain's tricked into thinking it's there. I had a friend who had a virtual reality lucid dreaming system. So what he would do is he'll be in his studio in London. I didn't have a go. I just read about what he'd put online. And you put the VR goggles on and you're walking across this beam, and underneath is like a massive chasm of fire. So your brain thinks, if I fall down, I'm dead. And these people who wouldn't even walk on it, even though they take them off and they see that there's land, there's nothing there but just a studio, they put them on, and it's like, because that's how powerful the brain is. So you can train skills with VR. You could practice climbing free solo. You could practice that if you've got the right environment set up. You could do that. You could learn how to do surgery on somebody and be in the environment without the threat of death or it going wrong, although that's there in the VR experience. Or you can use it to how we use the internet and technology to take yourself fully away, get immersed in your own environment, and create this bubble that this is where I'm going to be, and think you're a king or a god or an emperor in this realm, and you don't have to actually act in the social world. And we become segregated that way, and it becomes very much again about avatars. You know, have you seen Ready Player One?
Yeah.
Like Ready Player One, like cool, they go to this oasis, but their real lives, the real world has become nothing. So they escape to the virtual reality. And I don't think that was highlighted enough in the movie, actually, that they live in this cool VR world because the real world had gone to crap. You know, wars and poverty and escapism through that. And it's like, that is imaginary. The VR, the technology is still not imaginary in a good sense. I mean, it's false. And we put the value on the falsity rather than, well, if you wake up and look at the beauty around you, live in that. If mankind becomes intelligent enough to wire psychology, nature and technology, wonderful. I just don't think we're at a point where we do that. We might have to go through something hectic to get to that point, or it could be the end, you know?
Yeah, definitely. When we're talking about this topic, it just reminded me of, I watched the latest Joe Rogan podcast with Elon Musk, the one that he did recently, about, I think it was 2 weeks ago. And I think Elon Musk was talking about how they're getting very close. I think they're starting to experiment with it, is put a implant chip in a human brain. And then, so for example, if you've got a degeneration of your retina in your eyes, you with this implant, you can almost rewire the brain. So then you bring your sight back, and that's great in a good way. But and I just remember him saying there's quite a lot of people who will just sign up to it straight away without even thinking about the consequences. And I think I wanted to tie in the point that we just previously mentioned, where we need to, it's our responsibility, as in mine and your responsibility, the people who are in the between 25 to 30 and maybe slightly older. It's this generation that's experienced the previous generation, or the previous era, where we didn't have as much technology as we have now. You know, we didn't have the phones and etc. It's our responsibility to make sure that the new generation now are informed, because what's happening, this new generation, it'll be them they will literally sign up straight away and say, look, this has been a part of my life since I was a kid, so why not? It makes sense. Whereas we've been through that organic transformation where we've experienced playing in the park and not having to worry about getting hurt and all these sort of safety measures, and just living life how humans are supposed to live life, and not being so over reliant on screens all the time. And I think it's our responsibility to kind of educate people and say, look, mate, it sounds good on paper, but then think about the consequences of operating
on your brain and placing this inside. And think about what we can do with machines, modern machines anyway. If someone can hack a machine, someone can hack you. How bad would that be? It gets into if you ever watched the movie Prototype, I think it's called, or something. I can't remember what it's called. God. But it's about this man that he had an implant chip in his spine. He was in an accident, and then he had this implant chip, and then the chip, he thought he was controlling everything. Like, he had these amazing superpowers through the chip, because it was downloading, like in the Matrix, it was downloading information, so kung fu, etc., fighting ability. But then by the end of the movie, he started to realize that, it's called Upgrade. By the end of the movie, he realized that the chip was controlling him and made him think that he was controlling the chip. So again, that kind of stuff is really terrifying in the sense that when we start to create cyborgs, we are having that symbiotic relationship with technology anyway, because I think Elon talked about how if you look at your phone, all your numbers are stored on your phone. Back in those days, we either had to write those numbers down, and you would end up losing the paper, or you had to basically remember the numbers. You have to remember someone's phone number. But now you have these devices that remember the phone numbers. These days, people track their calories on their phone. So the over-reliance on technology is just rapidly increasing. And I think the only way we're going to stop that, or minimize it, or use it for a positive aspect, is to become conscious about it and say, look, we'll use it for this, this, and that, but then we'll choose not to use it for this, this, and that. And I get it. I don't blame anyone who's blind who will take the chip just so that they can get their sight back. I don't blame anyone for doing that, but then also understand that there's a certain amount of responsibility that comes with that, So I just think, again, it comes back to responsibility and just being conscious about the decisions you're making.
Yeah, I mean, that technology advancement, great. It gets your sight back, or worked for people with Alzheimer's, etc. Great. And if we were more conscious of our body throughout our lives, we likely wouldn't need to do that. If it was cancer and Alzheimer's, like the rates that they're at now, is telling of the times. People can look at these studies and say, there wasn't that studies done back then, or it wasn't recorded. But I believe it's the environment and its lifestyle that causes a lot of these. Yes, there are genetic pass downs for sure, but the fact that we live so unhealthily, and even just the food we eat, if you're not eating real food, fruit and veg, and bits of meat, if that's what you want to eat, but if you're not eating fruit and veg, you're not eating food. You're just eating product that's combined, or it's like fast foods or takeaways. It does things to you. Whatever you're putting into your body is turning into your body. As Sadhguru says, you eat a banana, 4 hours later it becomes a human. Like, that's happening with plastic and gelatin gum and or sugar, and it all has an effect which creates these cancers. And the environment with the electromagnetic frequencies around, and the petrol, and the chemicals, like the products we use in our house surrounded by it. It's all doing things all the time. And we have to, if we took care of our health, we might not need these advancements. It's not to say we don't. I think like veterans or people who are in the army and they've lost limbs and they get these cybernetics, brilliant. Like, wow, you give that person their arm back and their leg back, and that's great. People have had accidents. So there are the benefits again, but it's always the conscious use of it. Like these chips that they were doing in Switzerland to open the doors, or in America to pay for their shopping. People are going to get them. Those you narrowed it down to that generation coming up. It's normal to them. It's like, yep, makes sense. Store the memory, and it's like, we're going to be the dying breed of people who are doing things naturally and seeing that this is the natural way to be, to keep it balanced, not just going into reliance on computer for memory. Like I noticed myself the other day, I told you, didn't I, getting the plant omegas, because my short-term memory was going, my long-term's fine, but I was like forgetting things, and it was because relying on the phone too much to store everything, and everything's there, and no need to actually remember things or figure things out, or it's why puzzles are so good, to keep that part of the brain going. But when we're offered these chips or things you can access the internet or nah, it's not going to be for me, because you are giving command over, like this, was it form of pacemaker, or an implant that can release the drug that you need. It'll monitor your heart rate and go, oh, it's gone too high or low, release this chemical in. The chemical's stored in the drug. And so basically a transmitter somewhere is going, pump that in. So it's doing it. It's reading it, go, yes, pump it in. And if people think that that's just going to stop there, or it's always going to be used for beneficial means, I don't think they know the people who are behind the reasons why we have these things, or why social media is used by they get psychologists in to use the formation of colors to get people addicted. We all know that there were people who worked on the slot machines. Casinos were employed by Instagram to get the click and the delayed roll, and all the things that get that dopamine rush going, because it's all planned. Like the products, at the end of the day, somebody's making money off it at the end of the day. So be very, very cautious what we allow into our body and why it's there, rather than it just being cool. It'd be great if it was all done in the purpose of humanity, but it's not. That's how it's sugar-coated. Oh, yeah, this will make things easy for you. And yeah, but at what cost? Look at who benefits for it and why, and what are the natural means. And just to change the conversation a little bit, I was having an esoteric convo with my friend, and we were talking about the internet and how great it is that we can access all these things. And he said, yeah, but back in times when we were more connected to the stars and there was no light pollution, and you'd look out and you'd have that experience of a greater connection to the universe itself, just by not having light around, just by being able to see, you're a part of that. You're a part of that amazing cosmos and the universe, and you can't see it anymore, literally because of the technology of lights, because we don't all turn the lights off at a certain time, because we leave the lights going 24/7 in businesses and city centers. You can no longer see your connection to the universe, and you're less inspired and driven to see that. And again, just a deeper level of like dreams and being connected to our dreams and what we're able to do in there. Like that's the best virtual reality you'll ever have, because it's yours. And not only are you following a game somebody else has made, it's your world. You can do whatever you want in those dreams. All you have to learn is that ability to be more conscious and do that in the dream realm. And not only that, but you can literally physically and energetically improve yourself and have deeper understandings of reality, different levels of reality, not a computer encoded reality that has its limits and its boundaries. That in the dream state is only bound by your mind. Like the freedom's there if you want that, but it's easy if I just press play on this headset. You know what I mean? Takes away any effort and any self-development.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I remember reading this somewhere, but I can't remember where it was from. But if you look at the external world, if you look at the world, like you said about the light pollution and how it's causing us to become disconnected with the rest of the universe because we can't see the rest of the sky. If you look at the world that we're in right now, the turmoil that's going and the external world in front of us is also a reflection of what's going on the inside. All the poisons that we're putting on the inside, all the bad things that we are thinking of, the bad thoughts that we're having, all the negative emotions that we're feeling and the reactions that we're getting from it. It's a manifestation of what's going on the inside. And again, vice versa. The manifestation of the inside, of what's going on the inside of the biology, etc., is a reflection of how we're treating the planet. So it's working synergistically, and it's just becoming more aware of what's happening inside of us that's causing us the problems on the outside, and vice versa. I just think until people start feeling that, we're going to be stuck in this cycle where it'll feel like we're in a hell trap and we just want to get out. But yeah, it's a really good point that we have so much light pollution that when we look up at the sky, you barely see a planet. And it's such a shame that that's where we are right now in today's society, especially in the cities. I think if you live in a city, you need to get yourself out sometimes. Well, spend most of your time outside the city to realize how beautiful it is. Over this lockdown, I've realized how beautiful the UK is. It really is. It's gorgeous. But we live in in a small vicinity. We don't expand our mind into other areas of life, and especially around us as well physically, that we're just caught up in our own sort of bubble, I guess.
Very true, man. Very true. And that's it. Again, it's so multi-layered. Like when we're caught up in that bubble, the environment, we don't see space, we don't see the stars, and then we're in these buildings that are not interlinked with nature at all. It's busy. We're getting pinged all the time to respond to messages, and we've got to work our 9 to 5. Very little time to do our hobbies other than, maybe we drink and we forget about the troubles because we're so disconnected. And where will that lead us? Let's just apply a little bit of foresight and think, where will that take us as an individual, mainly as an individual, where will that go? Not just for society. As opposed to that, I mean, for me, I just feel very blessed if I can just look up at the stars and in a clear sky. I remember once, 2 years ago, I went to a friend's 40th, and it was just out in the middle of nowhere in this cottage. I spent 40 minutes on my own outside. I had a sore neck when I came back in, just like, I mean, I am personally very moved by just being able to see the stars and what space is. But I think anybody can be if they just spent that time to see it. How can you not? You see a beautiful landscape and it touches everybody. I'll be very surprised if someone goes, nah, I feel nothing, or I'm not interested. And if it does, why is that? Probably because of what we're capable to do with technology and the worlds that will take us to. Creation, imaginary, the imagination is wonderful. Like I did pick up a Switch the other day, and I've been playing Breath of the Wild again, and it's beautiful. It's like, because we were talking about, it's like a Studio Ghibli movie, and that's the technology, the art, the drawing they've done with those movies, and they put them together and really transported me somewhere because it was so new and profound. And then a video game where you get to do that, great, but know that there's the real version, there's a better version that's in real life that you can be a part of, that you are a part of, and not to lose that and to drop from the 3D and the 4D world down to a 2D screen. This isn't your life, it's 2D. You've literally dropped a dimension if we're living through screens and technology.
Yeah, definitely. But it goes back to that point where, if people are watching these or they're consuming these sorts of media, they are seeking that adventure. They're seeking that drive to just get out there. But instead of doing it physically and getting out there, they are doing it from the comforts of their home. But then doing it from your comforts of the home, you don't get the full experience. You don't get to feel the fresh air. You don't get to feel the breeze. You don't get to feel, you don't get to hear the animals and the birds cheeping. And if this thing, that's the disconnection that we're having. We talked about it in the previous podcast where cutlery is the barrier that stops you from getting to the food, because it's just to say that I'm different from this food, so I don't want to be touching this food. And we're doing the same thing to ourselves when we're indoors all the time. I want to experience that. Yeah, documentaries are great. I love David Attenborough. I love his documentaries. They're amazing because they get to show you the insights of nature. But at the same time, it has to create this drive to be like, I want to experience that. I want to be next to those animals. Obviously, if it's a Komodo dragon, you probably don't want to be near it. But you. Yeah, but you still want to experience something like that, and yeah, there's just been a drive to kind of do these kind of things, and I just feel it's a sense of sorriness and maybe even pity that people don't have that drive. It's really a shame that you're not exploring that. And again, maybe it's down to the times that we're living in where we needed this lockdown as much as it's been a negative thing in terms of deaths, etc., we needed this to say to us that, you know what, you need to appreciate what's happening out there. Stop being caught up in your own world. Get out there and explore the world. Definitely.
You've really highlighted it for myself. I can't wait. I really can't wait to get some more retreats going now. And even when we get out, I think we get a big load of us as mates and just go camping for a weekend, like just somewhere off track and just chill and get a little fire going. And I'm really, really looking forward to that. And that was because of lockdown. I could take it, not really get involved too much at times, but to show that it's about connection. It's about being with people and sharing who you are and your authenticity and being with other people who are authentic. And, it's wonderful, especially when you're with the right people as well, when you're on that level of friendship and understanding with somebody. And it's like, no matter what people say, nobody's there to ruffle feathers or to have a massive ego and stick out in a negative way. It's just cool people being open and honest out in nature where it feels great anyway. Everything feels good. And yeah, being indoors it's been amazing for me, but I'm ready to get back into people in a new way and really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great place to wrap up. It's been an hour and a half again. So I think an hour and a half is now our current level to achieve when we're doing these podcasts. But yeah, it's been amazing. So it started off with hair and then it ended up with this massive rant about being in nature and experiencing nature. So yeah, I love where these conversations go sometimes.
Just follow the thread. It takes you places.
Yeah, definitely. Right, mate. Thank you so much for this. This was podcast number 15. And as usual, you can find this on Instagram as a preview. There'll be a link towards the YouTube page where the full video will be. Other platforms, Spotify, and What was the final platform? Oh, I've already said it, YouTube. Yep. So those 3 are the main platforms. Maybe I'll stick it back onto SoundCloud. I know the SoundCloud are quite weird about the amount of uploads you can make in terms of having a free account. So maybe I'll stick it back on there because I've received a couple of likes from SoundCloud from the previous podcast. So there's 4 currently on there. So I might start uploading it back onto there. But yeah, we've also been reached out by people as well. So I don't know if you know Kay from where did I meet her? Oh, you probably wouldn't know her. She came to one of my handstand classes, handstand workshops, and I became good friends with her through that. But she was just saying like she wants to put our platform on her website that she's releasing next week, so more people are exposed to our conversations because she loves what we do. And I said it would be nice to have you and your partner on our podcast. I think they're in the creative industry. I think they shoot amazing videos. So yeah, it'd be nice to have a conversation with those guys. Just talking to Leo and Ksenia, well, Leo mainly this morning, and I said it'd be nice to have Leo and Ksenia on the podcast as well. So yeah, we've got good things coming up soon.
Wonderful, man. I'm looking forward to it as always. More people.
Right.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you there. The siren was going off there.
Yeah, all good, man.
Right, we're done.
We're done.
Right, stay conscious, guys.
Stay conscious.